Have you ever finished a painting and felt like it was a little flat? One of the toughest things as an artist is to be able to create depth in your picture. So today I want to be able to share with you my top 5 ways to create distance in your paintings. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I've got a couple of bonus tips for you. So let's jump in and get started with number 1, which is atmospheric perspective. The magic of nature working with you in your paintings is atmospheric perspective. Basically, the science behind it is the more distance between you and what you're viewing, there's more dust particles, pollen, which creates a softening on whatever you're viewing overall. So when you're painting your pictures, you want to make sure that the farthest away objects in your painting are very soft without a lot of details, and they have a lighter blue or gray content. Probably the best way to show it is, let's take a quick field trip. Let me show you right now in nature this as an example. Here we are looking out over the valley, and I want to be able to describe so you can see what I mean. Now, the farther you look out into the valley at these distant mountains, there's more particles between us and those mountains. For that reason, naturally, those mountains are kind of lightly grayed out and they're softened just because of the amount of atmosphere that's in it. Now, if you also notice, they're all kind of a lighter blue and gray because that's what naturally happens out in the natural world. So in your paintings, if you do that as well to your most distant objects, it will help create that perspective you're looking for. Number 2 is overlapping shapes. Our brain will naturally be able to put things forward one another if those shapes are overlapping. I did something different than what was provided is these trees along the edge line, I actually brought them higher than my resource picture. The reason is I wanted these overlapping trees to break these lines of the mountains in the background, which forces the mountains to be further behind because these trees are cutting through the line. If all the trees were shorter than the mountain, what it does is your mind kind of has an issue. Your mind looks at it and says, well, something's not quite right because it doesn't always look that way in nature. So the second thing, remember, is go ahead and break those natural lines in your painting to be able to push the further objects in your painting further back. Number 3 is the scale and size of objects in your painting. This might be one of the most basic ones to know about creating perspective, but it's very important to follow. Meaning that if you have an object that's close in your painting, typically it has more detail and it's larger. In comparison to that same object, if it's further away, will have less detail and it will be smaller. So an easy way to kind of describe it is imagine you had people standing in your picture. If you have someone closer to you, that person's going to look larger in comparison to someone farther away where the scale is smaller. Number 4 has to deal with color. This is the range of colors that you naturally can see in nature. Certain colors will disappear based on distance overall. So the easiest way to describe this is your warm colors are typically closer to you in comparison to your cool colors. So what you can do to help in your picture overall is by putting purposely warmer colors in your foregrounds, your yellows, your oranges, your reds, and then in the background, stick to your cooler colors, your blues and grays. And that will naturally allow your eyes and your brain to fill in the gaps to let you know that this is something that is natural that you would see in nature. The 5th tip is know where your lines are going or leading lines. The lines in your painting will naturally cause your audience member to follow where you want them to look. in these examples, there are some natural hard lines based on the ridges of the mountains, but there's also the natural lines of where the trees are following. Now, a better example of how you can manipulate your picture overall is actually a painting I did a few years ago. You know, a fence line, if you look here in detail, I created a fence line so that the audience member can see this fence. Now your brain will naturally say that this fence is the same height, but as it goes back in distance, every single time it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And in the background right here, it's very soft. The lines aren't as hard or as sharp in comparison to up here. This will naturally cause your audience members to be able to see that distance, pushing it further in the back along the way. So remember to use those lines as a way to be able to guide your viewer in distance in your paintings as well. As mentioned earlier in the video, here is a bonus tip here for you, creating perspective. This is called blurring out the edges of your painting. So the same way, if you've taken pictures and you have the portrait option on your camera, where the camera will focus on the portrait, but then everything around that portrait is kind of blurred out. That way it emphasizes what you're looking at. You can do the exact same thing with your pictures. So rather than having details all the way throughout, usually on the edges, I'll go ahead and I'll blur out those portions so that clouds are more detailed in the middle, closer to your subject matter, and blurred out up here on the top. So to recap here, remember your atmospheric perspective, your overlapping of your lines, your scale and your size, the temperature or color, as well as your leading lines will create better depth for your paintings overall. And by just adding a few of these in every single time, we'll be able to increase your professionalism in your paintings. Thank you so very much for attending and watching. Enjoy painting, and if you haven't had an opportunity yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button for more content like this, and have a great day.